This is Michael Behrens, December 20th, 2020. I'm at the Leonabelle Turnbull Birding Center in Port Aransas, Texas. Early in the morning on a clear, beautiful morning with the light behind me and watching these American pelicans preening. It's nothing like that contrast of bright white with the blue water behind them. American white pelicans are winter residents here on the Texas coast, and they nest up in the inland, actually in the large lakes in the northern states and Canada, and they are huge. They can have like an 8-foot wingspan, and then they'll fly in huge flocks. And look at those black flight feathers too. Some of them are showing as they're preening. So these can sometimes be mistaken for whooping cranes, especially when they're in flight. And they show that combination of black and white and large size. But they're not as long, they don't have the long trailing legs or the long projecting neck that a whooping crane does, and the black on the wings extends further than it does on the whooping cranes. And the whooping cranes, the black is only at the tip, whereas you can see there, the black is all the way down the back edge of the wing. Here's another black and white bird at the birding center. A big flock of Americanvocets way out in the middle of the pond. You can see there's one American white pelican with them. You can see the size difference. That huge pelican compared to these Americanvocets. Avocets are a wading bird with a long, narrow bill that's slightly upturned, and they skim through the water. Looks like there are green wing and blue wing teal mixed in with them. And look, okay, so see those pelicans. Look at that great blue heron that's sitting by them. And if you remember how big a great blue heron is, if you've ever seen one, well, look at it compared to these pelicans. It gives you an idea how big American white pelicans are. Americanvocet was the bird chosen for this year's Great Texas Birding Classic t-shirt and logo. You can see it's an appropriate choice, as they are here in Texas. Here's a distant look at an iconic Port Aransas bird, the Roseate Spoonbill. A lot of people see these birds in the distance and say, look at those pink flamingos. These aren't really flamingos, although we do have a native flamingo species, a Caribbean flamingo, that occasionally shows up in Texas. But these are year-round resident Roseate Spoonbills. And you see they have very different bills than flamingos. They have long spoon-shaped bills that expand into a circular shape at the end, and you see how they're using them. They open their bill and then slide it back and forth, feeling around for things in the water to clamp down on and eat. Again, you see the giant American white pelicans in the background, really showing you how big they are compared to these other species of birds. I don't know if you can hear, that's a willet calling in the background, the doo-doo-doo. Oh, here's a cormorant. We have two kinds of cormorants here in the Texas coast. One is a year-round resident, which I think this one is. Neotropical Cormorant. It's a little bit smaller than the double-crested cormorant, which is only here in the winter. It's a little bit smaller, has a longer tail, but really difficult to distinguish. One clue is the area, you can see in this video here, the area between the eye and the bill is dark. It has dark feathers on it, whereas the double-crested cormorant, that area between the eye and the bill would be yellow, would be a bear. And you see how it's drying itself off, maybe warming up some too in the morning sun, spreading its wings. Cormorants will become waterlogged. Unlike ducks, they're not as waterproof as ducks. They don't have as much natural waterproofing ability for their feathers like ducks do, and they swim underwater a lot. So every once in a while they have to come out and dry out their leaves, dry out their feathers. Oh, there's some Americanvocets in the background. No, those are Blacknecked stilts. And here's a Blacknecked stilt in the foreground. And here's one of the spoonbills again. There's a nice look at that bill. Oh, it just found something and popped it down its throat. Here's a group of 3 ducks called Mottled Ducks. They're very similar looking to mallards, to female mallards, but a little darker. And they're one of our few ducks, most wild ducks we have here in Texas on the coast and in Texas in general are migratory. They just come here in the fall and the winter. But these mottled ducks are a coastal species that stays here year-round. And there are ways to tell them from female mallards. The little subtleties in the bill, the cleaner yellowish bill on these mottled ducks is different from the sort of dirtier looking bill on the female mallard. Hey, and there's the reddish egret back again. Another cool species. Makes the Texas coast such a special place. So happy to be able to share these. Here's a Loggerhead Shrike perched over the, looks like a pile of yard waste and tree trimmings at the edge of the landfill. That's borders the Leonabelle Turnbull Birding Center in Port Aransas. And you can see the kind of a theme this morning in black and white coloration. This is a songbird that could be considered a bird of prey almost. It doesn't have strong talons like a hawk or a falcon, but it has a big old heavy hooked bill, and it's about the size, maybe a little bit smaller than a mockingbird, but more solidly built, stouter, and it has that black mask. Old name for this is French mockingbird, one of the old names, because it has similar colors to a mockingbird, but the colors are a little fancier. The extremes are a little more eye-catching, and design pops a little more. It's fancier. Back in the old days when something was fancier, often they'd call it French. So the French mockingbird, or Loggerhead Shrike as the current name is a predator and will hunt from perches like this, and mostly eats insects, but will also take other birds almost as big as it, sparrows, warblers. And another name for a butcher bird comes from its habit of it will kill more prey than it needs to immediately and impale insects or birds or even little mice that it catches on thorns, or I've seen them on the barbs of barbed wire fences. As you can see, it's a pretty sharp looking bird. They are also year-round residents here in Port Aransas on the Texas coast. The Port Aransas Nature Preserves are an important place for this species. The species is one of the songbirds that's undergone a dramatic decline in population, and so anywhere where it's still relatively common and easy to find, like here, is a very important place. Here's a Yellow-rumped Warbler, another winter Texas resident. see the yellow rump on this one, where it got its name. They love these dead sunflowers. These are silver leaf sunflowers, sunflower plants. Beautiful variation of sunflower that is on the Texas coast. See the light throat on this Yellow-rumped Warbler. So it's the myrtle subspecies. There's an eastern subspecies myrtle warbler and a western subspecies Audubon's warbler, and the Audubons would have a yellow throat. There's another little songbird, a sparrow, Savannah Sparrow. One of the most common sparrows, probably the most common, well, maybe not the most common, but one of the commonest sparrows out in the grasslands and the mudflats too. This is Michael Behrens. Hope you enjoyed watching these clips I took at the Leonabelle Turnbull Birding Center in Port Aransas, December 20th, 2020.